15 Arizona at 6.
Welcome to ABC 15 News at 6. We have a lot to get to tonight.
We've dealt with government shutdowns before. We've dealt with SNAP benefit cuts before. We haven't dealt with both of them at the same time.
Arizona food banks pushed to the brink after thousands in Arizona won't get SNAP benefits next month. Tonight, we're hearing from families impacting and demanding accountability from state leaders.
I don't know I don't have information about that. I thought people knew about this.
ABC 15 is demanding answers from our state leaders as well tonight, asking why the public wasn't notified sooner on the possibility of SNAP funding running out. We took our questions and yours straight to Governor Katie Hobbs. Plus, from serving in Vietnam to a denial of benefits, one Valley veteran is facing a different kind of battle now. I'm sharing his 3-year back and forth with the VA over disability payments.
But first, our big story at 6. Thousands of federal workers are missing their first full paycheck today as the second longest government shutdown in American history drags on.
That's right, Javier. On Thursday, the Senate failed to pass 2 bills that would have paid at least some essential workers during this shutdown. Tens of thousands of federal workers in Arizona also affected by this. The ongoing shutdown could also leave millions of Americans without their critical food assistance benefits. Dozens of states, including Arizona, say SNAP funding has run out for November. ABC 15's Ben Brown kicks off our team coverage, sharing the message you want to send to your elected leaders.
We want to start out with the big story across the nation tonight. More than 1 million federal workers are going unpaid during the government shutdown, including thousands right here in Arizona. Friday marked the first time many missed a full paycheck, and the dire situation has forced many federal workers to turn to food banks for help. Our team finding almost 900,000 are losing access to affordable food as the state announces SNAP benefits, otherwise known as food stamps, are being put on hold. And we've also learned the U.S. Department of Agriculture alerted Arizona state officials about this nearly 2 weeks ago. But the State Department of Economic Security didn't tell the public until we pressed for answers. ABC 15's Manuelita Beck followed up with Governor Katie Hobbs to find out why this took so long.
The Department of Agriculture sent out a memo to all states on October 10th telling them about this. That's the memo that was cited in the statement that DES gave me yesterday. Yeah. Why was this not told to people that their benefits wouldn't be paid until I asked questions about this yesterday?
I don't know I don't have information about that. I thought people knew about this.
And DES tells us in a statement they wanted to ensure they were giving families accurate information, saying they have been reviewing the federal government's guidance since receiving it October 10th, looking at the legalities and coordinating with other states. President Donald Trump says his administration is working on a solution, but according to a memo obtained by CNN, the USDA says it will not tap into its contingency fund to cover food stamp benefits next month. The memo says states will not be reimbursed if they use their own funds to pay for benefits. It went on to say the $6 billion funds, quote, are not legally available to cover regular benefits. And remember, your livelihood matters. If you're being impacted, let your elected representatives know. You can contact their offices by phone or email, and letting Arizona elected officials in Congress know how the lack of funding is impacting you could have an even larger impact in the long run.
This is ABC 15 Mornings Breaking News.
And right out of the gate here at 5 a.m., we do begin with breaking news and a dangerous night while you were sleeping. Police are at 2 shooting investigations involving officers, one in Mesa, one in Glendale. We do know that these scenes are not connected. I want to thank you for joining us on this Thursday morning. I'm Kaylee O'Kelly.
And I'm Megan Thompson in for Nick, who is out on the scene for us, leading our team coverage on these shootings. We want to show you a map of both, one in Glendale near 89th Avenue and Maryland, and 35 miles away in the East Valley, there near Mesa Drive and Southern Avenue.
Our Adam Mintzer is live in Mesa. Nick Saletti joining us from Glendale. Nick, this has been a busy morning already, and it's only 5:01. What can you tell us?
So Kaylee, Megan, we got to the scene just about an hour or so ago. You can see it is still very active here behind me. I counted at least a dozen squad cars in this neighborhood near 89th Avenue and Maryland. here in Glendale. Now, I did speak to some officers off camera. We're still waiting to get that official update from Glendale Police on what exactly happened. And right now, no timetable yet for when exactly those sergeants are going to come and give us an update. But here's what we know so far. Glendale Police say there was some kind of disturbance here in this neighborhood. They were called to the scene shortly before 1 o'clock. And then when they got here, somehow something happened in between that time they arrived. And there was a shooting involving a suspect here, but we're still working to piece together exactly what the circumstances were leading up to that shooting. In the meantime, I did speak to a neighbor who tells me all the commotion of this woke him up in the middle of the night. Listen.
It's like some shots, or it sounded like somebody was banging at my front door. So I got up it was like 1 o'clock and looked out the window, and all I saw is a bunch of police officers driving down the road here.
And he wasn't able to get back to sleep after that. He came outside and then talked to us. He lives about maybe 5 or 6 houses away from where we believe all of this happened here. Now, still a lot of questions that we need to answer. We need to figure out who this person was, what the circumstances were leading up to it, how severely was this person injured. We're also still working to figure out if any Glendale police officers were injured in this. So we will stay out here on scene. I'm trying to talk to different witnesses as well to try to piece together what happened from their vantage point. In the meantime, Kaylee and Megan, as you mentioned, it has been a very active night for Valley law enforcement. I want to continue our team coverage right now with ABC 15's Adam Mincer at a separate shooting involving police there in Mesa. Adam, what are you finding out?
Hey Nick, I'm at Mesa Drive and Southern. We know that the shooting that happened here involving officers started as a family fight call. You can see still a lot of activity that's happening here, as well as officers are continuing to investigate this scene. What we know at this time is when officers responded and came to that family fight call here in Mesa, somebody came out, the suspect in this instance, came out with a handgun or something that appeared to look like a handgun. Officers shot and injured that man. We're being told that that man is in the hospital. We don't know his status, how he's doing quite yet. Officers are going to be okay. And we just heard about 30 minutes ago from Detective Dreyer with Mesa. This is what he told us about the latest.
Absolutely. These types of incidents, we never know what we're walking into. They're inherently dangerous. So what I can say is I'm happy that there was no other people injured. Even as the initial call, that family fight, it doesn't appear there'd be anyone seriously injured as a result of that. But we're going to be continuing to investigate that.
All good news, but this is all early. Again, this happened at around midnight in the overnight hours. We're being told that Tempe will take over the investigation into this officer-involved shooting. I'll send it back to you guys, Kaylee and Megan.
Now, this is also the unofficial end of summer, but Labor Day is also a time historically known for activism. Happening today, labor unions are organizing protests for how billionaires and politicians are impacting working communities, including right here in Arizona.
So ABC 15's Jordan Bonke joining us live ahead of one of these demonstrations that's happening today across our state and beyond. Okay, so Jordan, set the scene for us this morning.
Yeah, this protest, this one's called Workers Over Billionaires. It's not only happening here in Phoenix, there's one in Queen Creek, in Tempe, and in Chandler. There are 16 different locations, including some in northern Arizona and Payson, also in Kingman and in Flagstaff. So some of these are organized by the Fuente Arts Movement, where part of the demonstration will include holding made-up tombstones and coffins to show that billionaires and politicians are, quote, killing our communities through corporate greed, school privatization, and attacks on working people, end quote. Now, part of this includes what it's called a die-in, where people will lie on the ground with tombstones, banners, and visuals that protest the closing of the public schools, families losing health care, and workers struggling to survive. So we heard from the Fuente Arts Movement last night ahead of this morning's protest. Here's what they wanted to share.
We see that our rights, our priorities are not being represented by the current Congress, and they're not being represented by the people who are making the decisions with our tax dollars.
And again, 16 of these different demonstrations all over State 48. The one that starts here in downtown Phoenix starts at around 9 o'clock and it runs till about 11. There's another one that's going to start right outside Schweikert's office. It's in Scottsdale. That one starts at 7:30 in just a matter of hours here. For more information on where the demonstration that's closest to your home, you can click on this story on our website at abc15.com. But so many people are looking, thousands are expected, wanting their voices heard. We'll be here to listen to them on what they want to say to politicians on a day that many people have off, but they want to show a little bit of activism, like you mentioned. Reporting outside the Capitol, Jordan Bonnke, ABC 15, Arizona.
Yeah, Jordan, you're giving people a lot of ways to participate if they want to, and also giving folks who are just traveling in and around the valley a heads up about what they may see out there today.
36, the city of Phoenix has a new chief of police after a months-long search that ended at one point and started again. Chief Matt Giordano sworn in less than 24 hours ago, and this morning the chief joins us live in studio. We appreciate you being here. We have a lot of questions to get to, and I put up on my social media accounts that I was interviewing you. The questions came in. Okay, so here we go.
All right.
You're obviously stepping in at a very important time for the Phoenix Police Department. There are questions, as you know, about trust, about recruiting, about training, even how officers are handling really tough calls in our community, including mental health. So that's why I put out this all call for questions. So I want to begin with a question from Matt, who writes in, for years, federal investigators were looking at Phoenix police and whether there were constitutional violations among the force. Then the Trump administration stepped in and rescinded that report. But people in our community still bring it up, wondering if some of those issues are real. Do you take these concerns seriously?
Oh, 100%. You know, any time that the community has concerns about how we're treating them, how we're enforcing the laws, that's concerning to me. So we need to make sure, one, we're following policy, we're following law, but then we're also communicating with our community. Because then we need to explain to them the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? To make sure that we're completely transparent, and that's what we've been doing.
And I'll get to that transparency topic in a moment. Jose writing in, thank you for that, by the way, wanting to know more about mental health calls. And he says, Chief, by now, the city's community assistance program, also known as CAP, was supposed to have round-the-clock coverage with behavioral health specialists handling more mental health calls. Where does that stand today with the department?
We continue to add, we continue to work on that. It's clearly, we need different levels of expertise when dealing with people that are in mental crisis. We do a really good job of training our officers initially. We have that advanced 40-hour CIT program, Crisis Intervention Team training, and that's really effective. Again, if we had infinite resources, we would have mental health counselors available all the time for every call when it's warranted.
It does seem like we're having more mental health calls. I know we cover them here at ABC 15.
We are, and historically the police department looked at that as aggression, and we didn't really understand it 30 years ago. So we would look at it as aggression. Now we understand that someone's in mental crisis, so continuing to give them commands and repeating things to do is not going to be successful. We need to learn how to effectively communicate, and that's what we do in our basic academy training as well as our advanced academy training.
You mentioned training, that's part of your history, so let's move on to discipline and transparency. Kimberly said, when you led the Arizona Peace Officers Standards and Training Board, you did oversee discipline for officers. As chief, how will you make that process more transparent here in Phoenix?
I think we're incredibly transparent, and in Arizona Post, where I came from, we posted it right on our website. After every board meeting, we would actually post this circumstances of the incident, the misconduct, and what, if any, discipline the board gave to the officer. So I'm big into transparency. We release millions of documents a year, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, I don't want to run out of time. I know I'm rushing through these, but I want to get you these questions.
Sure.
John wants to know what the biggest change you've seen here in Phoenix is so far, and when it comes to officers using de-escalation in the field, and where you think they still need to come together.
It goes back to what I talked about earlier. When I came out of the department more than 30 years ago, we would give those commands. We're the boss, we're in charge. We have the authority to do that. Sit down, stand here, don't do that. That's not effective communication. It's not. Although we have the lawful authority to do it, is it effective? No. We need to listen. We need to recognize cues when someone is in mental crisis, continue to talk to them, and de-escalate. My mantra my entire career has been, we can use force to take someone into custody, but if I can talk someone into handcuffs and I can take them without any use force, if I need to hold them accountable, if I need to arrest them, then that's a win. And that's what we're continue to express to our officers. Talk. Time's on our side.
Okay, I'm going to skip to our last question. I think it's really an important one because it's all encompassing here. Alicia is asking what priorities you have for training and resources to help officers do their jobs more effectively and safely.
Yeah, we're always going to look to leverage technology. If you saw the news, I think about a week ago, we launched our AI for our calls for non-emergency calls. So we're going to continue to look for that AI ability or any other technology advantage that we can leverage again, to make sure we have men and women out on the street responding to 911 calls.
I know you mentioned resources. They are stretched thin. Hopefully we can get more funding for our police department as well.
Absolutely. The community has been incredibly supportive, and I appreciate that.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
We appreciate all that you and your officers are doing for safety of our community every day.
Thank you very much for having me.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
This morning, Pope Francis has died at the age of 88. This is a live look from the Vatican right now as mourners are starting to gather to remember the Pope. So we just got word from Bishop John Dolan from the Catholic Diocese of Phoenix, who says, quote, the Pope challenged world leaders, the wealthy and the middle class. He was known as the Pope of the people.
That Franciscan friar was a real lover of nature, and that message really came through in the emphasis that Pope Francis placed on caring for the environment. He made climate change and the need to combat it a real hallmark of his papacy. He wrote an entire encyclical about the environment and really pressed world leaders to take action to keep global warming in check.
Well, during his 12-year tenure, Pope Francis was a vocal advocate for the less fortunate, turning a 4-story Vatican-owned building into a homeless shelter. In fact, for Holy Thursday, he often performed the annual ritual of washing and kissing the feet of people like prisoners, refugees, and those who are homeless.
Also lived in a very modest apartment, didn't live in the traditional Pope residence. Our team's also gathering much more on the Pope's death and what's next for the Catholic Church. ABC 15's Jamie Warren is going to join us live at 6, and Joe St. George from our Scripps News Group will be live in Washington with more reaction ahead at 6:15.
Vatican to the Valley of the World is continuing to honor the life and legacy of Pope Francis.
The Vatican confirming the 88-year-old died from a stroke and heart failure. And around the world this morning and around Arizona, we have seen an outpouring for a man who is seen as the people's Pope. Landmarks from around the world paying tribute to the Pope. The Eiffel Tower going dark with hints of gold in the Pope's honor. In his home country of Argentina, the Obelisco de Buenos Aires lit up in tribute to the Pope. This is one of the country's biggest landmarks. It had the words, "Pray for me," on it. He was known to say that to people, to worshipers. He was the first Pope from Latin America. We also know flags will continue to fly at half-staff today here in the U.S. and in Arizona.
Overnight, Cardinals making their first moves after the death of Pope Francis, setting Saturday as the date for his funeral. Starting tomorrow, they will allow the faithful to start paying final respects. Pope Francis, really known for making the Catholic Church much more inclusive.
His legacy is one of care for the environment. His big encyclical, Laudato Si, really made it a spiritual question. I also think, just as we saw, someone who is humble and compassionate and that people like.
World leaders also paying their final respects. President Donald Trump saying he and the First Lady will be attending the Pope's funeral. The Vatican saying Pope Francis will be buried in Rome's Basilica of St. Mary Major. He will be the first Pope buried outside of the Vatican in longer than a century. And you will want to stick with ABC 15 as we do continue to memorialize Pope Francis, his profound legacy felt by millions around the world. And you can find complete coverage on air and online at abc15.com. Here at 5 a.m., the conclave to select a new pope is getting underway this morning with a record number of cardinals participating.
So inside the Sistine Chapel, tables are set with place cards for each of these cardinals and ballots at each chair. The cardinals will be cut off from the rest of the world, voting up to 4 times a day, twice in the morning and twice in the evening. Now, according to reports out of Italy this morning, all cell phone signals will be deactivated in the Vatican during the vote to maintain that level of secrecy. Italy's news agency ANSA is reporting that the Vatican will use signal jammers around the Sistine Chapel to prevent electronic surveillance or communication outside the conclave.
And right now the cardinals are debating whether to elect a progressive pope similar to Pope Francis, known for a life of simplicity, casting no judgment towards the LGBTQ community, or select a more conservative leader focused on Catholic traditional values. Experts say it could be difficult for the cardinals to ignore the popularity of the late Pope Francis.
You saw the hundreds of thousands of people out here, millions of people, such an outpouring, and that has continued. The cardinals take note of that. That's the people's vote.
And we want to let you know the Diocese of Phoenix is live streaming the conclave. That began just a few hours ago. You can find it on their Facebook or YouTube page there. Ahead at 5:15, I'm diving deeper into the history of the conclave, including how long this process could take until we see that white smoke. And ahead at 6:15, our team is live at Vatican City with an update.